Thank you. And I must say that listening to the three previous speakers, I'm fascinated by how much the debate actually is framed in the same way in France. And we are a different country. We are a country where, if you look at the title of this panel, elections and riots have always been in lockstep. We glorify the riots, and then we have elections. Yes, so this is not new. But the lack of trust, too, you would think that France wouldn't have the same kind of problem because we are a country where there is little trust. I'm always fascinated by British and especially American society and the level of a horizontal trust that people have in one another, and which they are actually perceiving to be disappearing because the bonds of trust that existed in a recognizable American and British culture seem to be disappearing. But in France, we are a country where your neighbors turn you into the police. And I'm not talking about the 1940, 1945 time. I'm talking about the St. Bartholomew massacre. A great French historian has just written a book about the using all the anonymous letters and all the court cases and the justice investigations and the executions that devolved from people denouncing the neighbors as being secret Protestants. And by the way, I really would like to have his flat or house. So we invented nothing. We're not a country of trust. And still, there was enough trust that when we've lost it, we feel how much we've lost it. And this election, the wonderful, glorious, extraordinary mess that gives me so many opportunities to write, it was all contained in the arrival of Emmanuel Macron. And Emmanuel Macron seemed to be the dream, the French dream. The French dream is somebody who comes from the deep state, has, aced those exams and those competitive, the sort of concours that you have to pass in order to be acceptable in polite society in Paris. And so we had somebody who was both outside, a disruptor, somebody nobody knew, but we could trust him because he came from the state and he was our Brexit vote in so many ways. Here is this man who in 2016 says, I want to be president. And in 2017, he's elected president. And he's got this sort of crazy and hysterical campaign, 200,000 people volunteer happily and sort of, canvass people, go door to door. And I'll remind you, we're not a trust country. So this is a very new thing. So what people were doing, I didn't vote for him because I'm a wily old bird and I thought, yes, this is too shiny. I don't believe in it. But people voted because, like you said, they wanted to kick the bastards out and they were all aligned, the socialist, he was part of a socialist government, and they were, the hit between the eyes. François Hollande, the socialist president, did not even run again. And the right was said to be sort of old people. And then he said, I can do en même temps, at the same time. I can take the best from the left, I can take the best from the right, and we can make something different. And of course he didn't. That the style was entirely different. It was incredibly even more top down. You had this man who was popular and sort of, shaking hands in this wonderful campaign. And when he's inaugurated, the first thing he does is he speaks in the courtyard of the Louvre Museum at a high dais. And he's separated from the crowd by 100 meters, which he walks alone. I mean, you cannot more figure somebody as being the king. And then just, in case we didn't miss the reference, he said, the French want a Jupiterian president. I am Jupiter. And it went downhill from there because it was bound to do the But what happened, and he became unpopular, but still, when he was pitted against Marine Le Pen, the leader of the National Rally, the revamped and renamed National Front, at the last election 2 years ago, in 2022, it feels like a century, people looked at her and they thought, I'm not sure she's a fascist, but I'm pretty sure she's incompetent. And that was why she didn't go through. And there were enough people on the left who said, no, what she says is not what I believe in. It's not me. It's not the country. It's not France. It's not the tradition. We're not going to elect somebody whose father so obviously came from unpleasant parts of French society. I've just mentioned them before. And so she failed. And then she's been plodding on. She's been rebranding her party. She's been making it much more acceptable. The Overton window has moved at the same time, where you can now talk about immigration and you still get the ritual insults, but there's also many more possibilities to actually look at the fractures in society, that an immigration that you do not control and that you do not choose, and that you then inflict on people who don't know how they're going to cope with practical things, social services, etc. That is something that has moved. And there's also a feeling of that the French identity is being lost for the same reasons. So what happened at the European elections was the European elections are the only PR vote that we have in France. And therefore what it is, and has been traditionally ever since we started having them, is a life-size poll. And Macron got clobbered because it was easy and it was supposed to have no consequences, really. It was really, we mean it next time. And he looked at it. He had a fit of pique. You have to realize that Emmanuel Macron wanted to be an actor. He really wanted to be a classical actor. And he has acted his presidency in some way. He's performed his presidency. We look deep for sincerity and don't always find it. But he looked at the results. The results were saying, we want you out. And he called a snap election. He had an uncertain house. We have a very different system in France, but he didn't have entirely a majority. So every single major bill had to be passed with alliances, which could happen or could not happen. If not, there is a constitutional disposition in France, Article 49.3 of the French Constitution. I'm sure you're happy to know this, in which the Prime Minister puts the collective responsibility of its cabinet on the line, and if you vote against this bill, then I will, if you do not want to, I will ram through this bill with this article. I will ram through this bill, and if you're not happy, you have to then have a vote of distrust, a lack of trust in my government. But it worked. He passed his pensions reform. And then came this. He called the snap election. The snap election was not necessary from a house in which he lacked 15 to 20 MPs for a majority. He found himself in a house where he had no majority whatsoever, and the country has been divided in three feuding blocks. And those three feuding blocks who didn't have time, and that was entirely Macron's design. He gave them 3 weeks to bring in an election. A national rally, even not being prepared, came broadly, 11 million votes against 7 million votes for the left and 6 million votes for the Macroniste. And in the second round, the other two ganged together and said, this is the anti-fascist front, no pass around. And we're now left in the situation where there is no trust. There is a cabinet that comes from the weakest party in the House, people who've got 48 MPs when the left front have got 190 and the right has the National Front have got National Rally have got 140 and Macron's people have got 110 or something. It is essentially a mess. My figures are not entirely accurate, but that's the proportion. And we don't know what we're facing, but we are facing this in a country where you talked about the state, the importance of the state. The importance of the state has been the Constitution of France, so we do not trust our state any more than you do. And therefore, I will end because I'm over my time, but we are coming from a different way of doing politics, but we are facing exactly the same thing that Britain is.
Thank you very much.
Okay.